Okay. Welcome, witches. Thank you for joining SASS Mass, our Spirituality and Support Symposium. The recording has started. The terms of engagement are posted in the chat, so if you just want to take a look at those. We ask that you mute during the recording for clarity in the afterplay. We'll get started with some announcements. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Maria. Hello. So we are coming up to the end of the weekend, but we have a week coming up with a full moon. We have Witch Work Circle on the 21st. And back in the day, in Bright and Dark, we used to have meetings on the new moons and the full moon. So it just feels extra exciting when that Witch Work Circle meeting kind of aligns with the full moon, because part of that is release. And so we have Witchwork Circle on the 21st. We're going live tomorrow on our Instagram, and we added TikTok. Even though like we're working through internet, we had some glitchiness today. So for anyone that saw us this morning, we like appreciate you for hanging in there with us during the glitchy times. But it is a full moon coming up, so some of these things just happen. We are working on a lot of things, actually. We have so much going on behind the scenes, working on a lot of projects that we've kind of shared, that we're going into an app for all members. It's like super close to being ready to share, and like it's going to be so exciting. So it's going to be a separate app that anybody can access from the web. Members, it's for members, although we're looking to have a space to connect with other witches in kind of a public space. So that's just it's all being sorted out. The reason why we kind of just want to wait, we want to make sure we can do the thing and that it's really solid when y'all get there. So that's why we're just kind of letting you know like what's happening. And we're going to share way more details, but we want to make sure it's really solid and like we kind of know what we're doing so we can help you to know what you're doing. Cause I'm like, what is this? I don't know. So um but that's coming. It's coming very soon. We're gonna start beta testing it. Like some of the witches are in there, but we're gonna bring some of the guilds in there so that they can beta test it and be like, this we don't think this works. This is great. Like, can we change this and that? So like it's really solid. And then of course when y'all get there, we love feedback and recommendations. So that's coming up really soon. We're also like really working hard on um other like kind of other community things that we are like looking to kind of expand, and it's in the very very beginning stages, but I just just to kind of so you know that we're like really working like hours and hours and hours on like putting some new things together. And so we're really excited about it, and things as things become clear, we'll be absolutely sharing more information. So, yay! Um, Go ahead and like dive into your workbooks at the end of the month. So if you haven't gathered your supplies for Witch Work Circle, now's the time to do that. We meet on the 21st of every month for Witch Work Circle. We all do that together. So if you're new to spell work or spellcrafts, we walk everything through step by step. And then the end of the month is the reflection. And then on the first of the month, we start a whole new moon cycle with a whole new workbook. So I'll pass it over to Jen Marie, or if Whit wants to jump in, because we have rituals and revelry coming up, which I have to say slow because it's a tongue twister. That's coming up in June, so I'll pass it off to them to talk about. And then if anyone's interested in the in-person convergence, we're going to probably be talking and re-engaging more with everyone that was interested. That in-person convergence we have every fall. It's at the end of September, beginning of October, depending on how the months fall. It's called the Autumnal Convergence. And right now that's our only like in-person convergence that we have for Bright and Dark so far. So pass it off to Jemery and Wit, talk about rituals and revelry, and then the floor will be open for anything that you want to talk about.
This is the fun game. You gonna go? I'm gonna go. You're gonna go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go.
Like, just so you guys know, we don't like script this or plan it most of the time. It's like Maria's like, you're gonna talk about this. And we're like, oh, okay. Rock, paper, scissors, bitch. What are we doing? I've actually been talking about it on it's Wit's turn. I'm passing the ball off to you. I mean, unless you want me to.
You jump in when you want to. How does that sound? So our Rituals and Revelry Midnight Sun Edition. I'm always like, did I say it right? I got the Rituals and Revelry now. It's the other pieces that now stumble on everything, as usual, you know, the easy words like sun. So this is our second Rituals and Revelry that we've had. Our first one we had in Oregon. And this one we're going to be having in Alaska. So Akasha and I are going to, Akasha's our tech witch. She's the magic behind the website and all techie things. So we're going to be traveling up to Alaska to Jen's house in a few weeks, in just under a month now. And we just started to finalize. Plans aren't actually finalized until they're like happening with our group, because we like to pivot quite a bit. So coming from an event planning background and a planner, it's been real fun. But it is actually lots of fun because we can really pivot and just go with the flow. So, but
and trust your intuition and allow for magic.
Anytime that Jen and I get together, there's just we play off each other so much. It's ridiculous. So we are also going to be having Kim, our craft master, be joining us from Oregon because she's getting a new puppy. So she's going to be in Alaska like the week before us, week and a half before us or something like that. So a quick turnaround to come back up to join us again is a little crazy. So plus who's going to want to leave little Cairo? You can't leave him. So she will be joining us and providing some guidance with some kitchen witchery and with our spellcraft. So she will still be a part of it, just snuggling her little baby at home. So but we are planning some pretty cool things. So there'll be some kitchen witchery, there'll be a spellcraft that we'll be doing to support ourselves for the summer equinox, right? Yeah. Okay. And summer solstice, isn't it? Wow. I like how everyone just let me go with it. Kitchen witchery, we're going to be doing some shenanigans. We're going to go hiking in Alaska. We are planning on a bonfire, a ritual too, to help us prepare things to help support us through the changing of the season. So it's a lot of fun. It starts Friday, this 14th at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it goes through Sunday morning, the 16th, pretty early. You know, I live on the East Coast, or I'm on Midwest, but I'm on Eastern Standard Time. So that to me is like, oh God, it's so early in Alaskan Standard Time, but it's all right. It's all right. It'll be good. So yeah, I highly encourage everyone to join in. We're going to be doing some ritual movements as well too. So it is not to replace a convergence, or it's not like the convergence that we do. But this is just another way that we can help support. We try to, we curate it specifically, and that's kind of why we pivot so much, in kind of leave room for us to kind of figure out and feel into what do the people who are attending need in that moment, and what are their guides asking us to do, and what are our guides pointing out, so that we can curate that specific experience for you. And really doing it in your home so that you can start learning how to do these things in your home in like your natural environment. Because it's one thing to do it in person with a group of people, but that is usually outside of your home and not, you leave it feeling like, whew, okay, so how do I get this feeling back at home? So this is our way of helping curate that feeling as well too. So and all the proceeds that we get from it go into our expansion projects. So last time we expanded the shop and we're able to provide support to Kim. And so excited to get this for our next projects. All right, did I hit everything? Any questions?
Well, the other thing is that we one of the great things about you guys being able to do this virtually, especially since we're going to be outside, like around a campfire and stuff. So while we're going to be outside by the campfire, those of us that are in person are going to be frantically whittling spears out of rowan to fight off the mosquitoes for everyone. And so you guys don't have to experience that, but it's probably going to be very entertaining. So we'll see. We'll see about that. It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Ooh, can I give an update about our
Go ahead.
in-person convergence too?
Yeah, get it.
So we for those who are interested for in-person convergence, that is in the end of September. We will be going to Oregon. We're gonna be going to the Mount Hood area. We did procure our lodging, our main house. So we should have those tickets live here in the next week or so. So we'll make an announcement of it, but just wanted to put that out there of that last remaining. The tickets for the event are live right now, but the tickets for lodging will be ready to go here soon. So keep your eyes out for that. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Jean Marie.
So now we just get the conversation going. This is an open, intuitive conversation among equals. And you're welcome to share whatever comes up for you. You're welcome to info dump. You're welcome to be like, you know what I learned this week? Or you're welcome to be like, hey, I experienced this, or I had this dream. Can I, y'all want to interpret it? All of us are super into the weird shit. So you don't have to hold back and you don't have to be like, are they not going to understand what I'm talking about? Because yeah, we probably do. Trying to kind of feel into. So the live this morning was really great. All of you that went to it. Yeah, the tech thing, it's so interesting. It's so interesting to me that because my relationship with tech, this has always been a thing for me. I have such a complicated relationship with technology. And most of my magical practice, I was taught not to have tech in magical spaces. We literally left our phones and stuff and when we were able to have phones, because I started practicing when cell phones weren't a thing. But so we would put our electronics in a basket at the door and not even bring them into circle. And so the fact that we are practicing the kind of magic that we're practicing online and using tech in the way that we are, it just hasn't really been done much. And so the last 3 years, we've gotten to see a lot of how this particular flavor of magic that we work with interacts with tech. But I find it interesting that it was in some way my path to be so involved in tech because of my personal field problems with it. It's just not reliable for me, or it's reliably unreliable for me. And it puts me in a weird position because I create so much of the content and stuff for the resource center, It's like, why? Why me? Like, why me of all people that live in the middle of fucking nowhere and like has internet issues? And like, I can almost feel my own guides giggling about it, that it's like some kind of cosmic joke. And what's funny is I've noticed that I don't have as many tech issues when the witches in the blanket fort aren't involved. It's when I bring them in that things start to kind of like shut down, or when I try to get a co-host of some sort. And I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I feel super fucking awkward when I'm doing lives and when I'm like on camera and stuff. I know it doesn't register, but in person is totally, totally different for me. And when I'm like engaging with you guys, in a lot of ways, the witches in the blanket fort and like my co-hosts and stuff, when I pull people in, they're like training wheels for me. They're a safety blanket. That's why we call it the blanket fort. It's a safe place for me to be around like people that understand me in a very like public like space. It's almost like taking witches with me to go grocery shopping. It's just a lot more comfortable. And I find it interesting that my guides are like, yeah, but we're gonna like take the training wheels off and you're gonna have to just like do the thing. So uh here we go. I'm glad you guys are with me on this journey. Um yeah, as much as we can. All right. What's going on in your world, guys? Any any repeating patterns? Any Oh, hi Maya.
Hi. So I talked about this a few weeks ago, and I thought that I should like bring you guys up to speed for those of you who were there. But a few weeks ago, to like a month ago, I started having repetitive dreams of basically doing this ritual where I make a candle that's dedicated to the goddess Hecate and lighting it in front of a mirror, letting the candle burn out. And then once the candle burns out, I look into the mirror and see images. And every single time it's a different image. And the beginning of the dream is always different. It's almost like it fades into the ritual, like it's not actually meant to be a part of the dream. And that hasn't stopped. There's been more and more dreams of the same. And then the other day, I have like a year of my life that's kind of missing from my memory. And the other day, once the ritual was done, I was looking through the mirror and I saw a piece of that missing year go on. But I didn't think it was real. Like I just felt like it's a dream, whatever. But I was talking to my mom the other day, or like afterward. I was like, hey, so like did this actually happen? She was like, oh my God, I thought you didn't remember that. I was like, I saw it in a dream. And she was like, yeah, I hate to break it to you, but yeah, it was very traumatic, which is probably why you don't remember. But yeah, that actually happened. And I had no clue. So that's kind of like update. But I'm also really nervous when it comes to working with mirrors. I like it kind of like makes my skin crawl having that mirror become like a portal almost, and it's just I don't know. I feel uncomfortable working with it, but I know like from my dreams it would be beneficial to push that boundary, but I'm just so scared of it. I don't know. Thoughts, concerns, feelings.
Yes, we have weigh-ins here. Taryn was the first. Taryn, do you have a weigh-in or did you want to share and then we can?
Mine was something else, so if somebody has a way in, let them go ahead.
Perfect. All right, I'll go to Marie and I are gonna weigh in and then we'll talk about Maya's first. Go ahead, Marie.
All right. So I'm going to be real, like super honest with you. I have a fickle mind sometimes, and I didn't hear like the memory that you had about a mirror. But what does come like really strongly forward and is super relatable, because I had that relationship with mirrors with windows at night. So when they were like black at night, I, as a child, as a blind kid, would see things in the windows in that like space, if that makes any sense at all to you guys. Um, and because I didn't have the support, I didn't communicate that with my parents because I thought I was crazy or it was this like bad thing. I didn't have the guidance to understand what was actually going on. And so it did like perpetuate this fear or create this fear within me when relate like anything to do with mirror work. And when I was a kid, I would see things in mirrors all the time. It was a very like common thing. And so I actually ended up doing a lot of work on my shadow work regarding my relationship with mirrors. What do I believe that they are? What was my relationship with them? And really like digging into that fear. And the truth of that I found of your relationships with things like that, like mirrors specifically, we recognize like great power. We recognize when like a circuit is closed in some way. And when you have a gifting that taps into something like that, and it like there's this like pop of awareness, and it's like crosses worlds like that. It we don't have an example of this. And so we equate it with like a scary thing. Um, so if you have fear associated, look at that fear and where did that come from? Learn like if this is a portal, like if it is, how do I like protect myself, or how do I become a more responsible practitioner when I'm engaging with mirror work? So it's not necessarily mirror work is a bad thing. Mirror work could be a really powerful thing for you. And there is a deeply inherent respect for it that is a part of your practice, right? Like that experience gave you that reverence that is needed to actually engage with this from a place of like sincerity. Does that make sense? Um,
Yes,
but that's again, I didn't actually hear what your experience was. My brain kind of drifted, but I hope that was helpful.
it was.
If,
Thank you.
yeah, if you're afraid of something, educate yourself and see if that fear is like uh, a boogeyman kind of stuff of like, you were taught that all things unknown or bad or scary, or is it just like you need to educate yourself how to work responsibly with this part of your stuff. Okay.
Okay.
Maria.
Thanks. I was kind of channeling, I feel like Ocean a little bit. Ocean always says kind of like what in terms of like the symbolism, like what does that represent for you? So thanks, Ocean. And so like with the mirrors, you know, right now, if you're not in a place that you're feeling comfortable and like do working with that as part of your magical practice, like that's okay. And but like what is the is the mirror an actual thing that to work with as a magical tool, or is it more of a symbolism, so even just taking um some like journaling or art or whatever to even kind of explore what like more of the symbolism of the dream means to you, rather than like engaging in the magical practice, could be a very powerful tool to kind of sort it out. Um, you can always ask to be like, this doesn't work for me. Could you please, can we try something else? Like, like, is there something else? And just with the fear part, I think that, um, leaning into and just recognizing as you are that like this is coming up for you and that you're feeling that, and that supporting, you know, like supporting yourself and your system just with that. And if there's like shadow work around that, that is like a great time to like potentially, if you want to, of course, because you know you do have a choice in all of this. Like just because something might be being shown to you, like revealed to you, or like you're in a place where you maybe are getting these messages or you are starting to remember things, it's because you've done some work, probably a lot of work leading up to this point, right? But you have a choice. Like you're an active participant. I think I just wanted to maybe like lend that like empowerment to you to remember like you're like a part of this. Like you basically um you know, you have control. I say that because like I examine my relationship with control a lot. But in this case, like I just want to remind you that like you're driving the bus. Like you're driving. And so yeah, perhaps it feels safe, like, you know, feeling that fear. So we know that that's coming up for you, and feeling that, and maybe diving into the shadow work, maybe that's going to come up in your journaling, you know, for the month, and kind of, you know, allowing yourself to feel the feelings in a place where you feel safe and supported to do that. And just kind of see what comes up, because I feel like we can get a lot of information by like just turning inward and really exploring that and seeing what comes up. Um, and then yes, and then maybe exploring more of like the symbolism in the dream as a way to kind of work through it, and then make a decision if you actually wanted to like incorporate those things in your magical practices. I mean, even in working with Hecate, you can be like, you know, thank you, like just like thanks for showing up. You know, and like this is where I am right now with working, you know, with working through it. For me, goddess, you know, and I don't follow any sort of tradition, but I just go off of the energies and like my own relationship with things. So when I'm talking, just know I'm talking from that perspective. Um, Goddess energy for me is always like is supportive. Like for me, when they show up, they're showing up like to support. And if I ever feel like a fear in any sort of way or scared, I know I have to pause and just kind of look at that and explore that part, because I don't want to enter a relationship energetically from that perspective. So I just know to myself it's time to turn inward and explore that a little more. And I hope that was helpful. I
Yes,
will,
you.
I'm going to pass it off to Ezra.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this, Maya. I love mirror magic. I realized the other day when I was talking to Ocean, and I realized that pretty much my first big spiritual experience was like looking in a mirror and like seeing myself at, like as if for the first time. And I think that I definitely like second everything Marie and Jim Marie said. One of the things that uh, for me, mirrors are, you know, literally a tool to look into yourself. And I think that can be a very scary experience, especially if you've gone through traumatic things that your mind is protecting you from. And what it seems as though from the content of this stream is that you've been issued like an invitation that if you wanted to look deeper into yourself, you could. Um, and I think what I wanted to ask you, if it's okay, if not, you can just like, you know, move along. But like, how do you feel about the memory that you saw? Like, how is that sitting with you?
Um, there's a lot of anger in the memory because it
Mhm.
dealt with abuse. And so there was a lot of anger and fear and almost like disbelief that that even could have occurred, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, it's just a dream, it's whatever. But then something like tickled the back of my brain. I was like, let me ask, let me see. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. That sounds like really scary and like uh confusing and um like maybe it like knocked you off kilter a little bit to learn that that was a real thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And from my perspective, it seems like when we have these dreams, they're kind of giving us the signal that maybe we are ready to deal with certain feelings that are coming up. But that is all up to you. Like, you don't have to feel, I think both Jen Marie and Maria said this, but you don't have to do anything you're not ready to do. The invitation isn't going to expire. You've just gotten it now. And, like, now you've talked about it as well. And so it's you can just kind of leave it as a bookmark until you're ready to process more. And so I think at this point, it's really just about you getting comfortable with the idea of looking either into the mirror or maybe engaging with Hecate as a goddess more. And I keep on thinking congratulations. So I'm gonna say that, even though I know it probably doesn't, like, it feels a little bit like asynchronous at this point, but it does feel like an important moment. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Ezra. Maya, does that feel kind of complete? Do you feel like you wanted to add anything after the weigh-ins, or how are
No,
you
like all
feeling?
of that made so much sense and gave me a clear vision of what I'm gonna do next. Because I was very confused, didn't know what I was gonna do with any of it. But you guys help like bring the ADHD brain of all the possibilities into a narrowed view. So I really appreciate it.
One other like quick thing pinged for me. Jen Marie had I had brought a situation, and we had talked kind of about like the ritual before bedtime, and like kind of how you might set yourself up like before bed. That's something you could explore too. It's something that I'm not great about doing either. So it pinged me too to remember that as well. All right, Taryn, you are next.
Okay, can you hear me? On that side. I recently had an experience. Usually after the lives, I just kind of sit with it and just kind of see what message I might receive afterwards. And I think it was last SASS actually, but anyways, I was sitting on the couch, and I live in a tiny house, and so my couch is like in the living room area, is like in the center of the floor, so it's like 4 feet behind me to the wall, 4 or 5 feet. And to my right, the back wall up towards the ceiling, I have a high ceiling in the kitchen, I saw that weird triangle of light that opens, like when someone's opening a door that has a light into a dark room, and you see that kind of twisted triangle of light. So I whipped around, of course, and looked, and nothing was there. But since then, in the opposite corner in my kitchen, in almost the same exact spot, I've seen like this, like a, describe it, like a, it's like an old like a shimmering kind of, like it's like what I'm looking at becomes distorted, almost like an old TV screen, the old box kind where you'd have to whack them to get it to come back straight. And so that's happened like 3 times since I saw what was like somebody opening a door. So thoughts on that?
You, Taryn. Are you looking for kind of weigh-ins? Are you looking, are you like trying to kind of interpret that, or how can we
Yeah, I'm just
support
trying to
you?
figure out what it is. Like,
What it
is this
was?
some kind of portal, or like I got people, people using my my kitchen as they come and
Yeah.
go.
What did you feel when that was kind of going on?
Just interested, really curious more than anything. I kind of accepted like stepping into this world and my abilities and things, and so I haven't really had any fear when things have happened recently, just because I've asked for it. So can't blame them for showing up. Just trying to understand what it might be and if there's anything I need to do about it, or do I need to welcome them, or do I need to close them up, or
Yeah, go ahead with your question. Sit.
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, yes, hello.
I had a question that was something else. I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, sure, sure, sure. No problem. You will be next. Thank
Thank
you. So Ezra, Ezra, you have a way in?
Yeah. If you wanted to go first, Maria, you can though.
No, go ahead. I'll go over there.
So like I'm just like really excited about, like, this is the second time that somebody, like, already today that somebody's asking, like, is it a portal? Like, it feels to me as if there's an uptick in a lot in spiritual activity in general. And so it's cool to see it confirmed here in addition to the other places. But one of the things you said, like, should I close it? Like that kind of thing. And if it, like, if you're asking for I mean, you're allowed to close it, close the door that's been opened. It kind of seems though to me as if you're looking for that. And so it feels like an opportunity and kind of another invitation to you um to further your experience with magic, and however that presents to you. I really loved I got a very strong visual when you said the triangle of light when a door opens. That was like a very beautiful imagery. And I don't know if you've been here long enough to have experienced this, but we've done a lot of like, we've done meditations before, where we talk about like the door to our magic, and in the meditation, and we like check to see if the doorknob is open, and for some people it's locked, and for some people it's wide open, and some people it's cracked, and that kind of thing. And so this to me like feels like a literal, like a door that you are actually seeing physically, if you would like to deepen your connection, if you feel safe to do that. And kind of like what I said to Maya, but like, it's an invitation and you can sit on it as long as you want, and it doesn't expire because time isn't real. And so whenever you're ready to deepen that connection, um, that's a really cool, like, I love the shimmering. To me, it seems like a place where the veil is especially thin, and you have like access to that in a very like physical, visual way. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I started Bright and Dark in March, beginning of March, and just before that, I kind of made a blanket statement to just kind of I basically told my ancestors that I was ready to remember who I was when I was born, and I was ready to accept whatever abilities that I was born with. So now it's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not prepared. I mean, I'm not scared or anything like that. I just, I don't really I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something, and I don't know what that is.
Bringing it up here is a really good start. And I think you're probably more prepared than you give yourself credit for too. So
thanks, but I don't really feel like that.
Were you looking to like brainstorm ways to interact with it here? Like I'm sure a lot of people could give
Well,
you
just anything that any thoughts anybody has on it, ways to interact with it, or if I should, if they've had a good or bad experience, or just whatever anybody feels to say, or nothing at all.
Um, so just what I feel into when I felt into it just a little bit, and your interpretation of it is the most important thing. But the to me, it felt more like like a symbolism more than like to me that it was kind of coming up um of like more kind of showing you like symbolism. And I think you like because you mentioned like the triangle, but I know you said it was more light, and I don't know if this resonates with you or not, but the triple spiral, like I don't know if that's something that you've worked with or if it's part of your Celtic ancestry, like, or even if you are Celtic, I don't know, or even if not, because it can be like a pagan symbol too.
It is, but I haven't really, I'm just getting into all this stuff. Like I always looked at everything from more of a paranormal type, like psychic thing. I never connected or explored into the witchcraft aspect of it.
Do you do you see those two things as not connected?
No, well, when you say not connected, what things?
So like more exploring like a paranormal event, and then like and then looking at like what you're delving into with your witchcraft. Are you kind of seeing those from like separate of you, or are you kind of
No,
like
well,
okay.
I used to, but like I said, I never looked at witchcraft or anything because my knowledge of it was just like the Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
like TV stuff. But I've never really. That's my only interaction with it. But not that I bought into that stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
And I've
It's
been
all
delving into my lineage and stuff, recently, and I started in Germany. And did y'all know that like half of the witches or people who were prosecuted and executed and stuff for witchcraft were German? Like that was like a hotbed for witch hunts and everything. I didn't know that until this recent.
yeah, in Europe there was a lot going on there.
Anyways, that's it. I just wanted to be able to tell somebody.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like for me, witchcraft, like the whole paranormal and the witchcraft, and also science and also like research, and I'm like I love to kind of delve into that. So if I
Yeah, I'm a research junkie.
yeah, and so like a potential as like a starting point to just kind of gather more information, like when we're trying to figure out like, hey, I had this really cool experience, but like, what does it mean? And so like one way is like the intuitive, our intuitive self is to kind of, and to like, you could even go into a grounding or meditation like we do here, and using whatever supportive tools that you want, incense or tea, and just kind of set like that space, and you could just kind of feel into it and take notes on what comes up. You could write about it, take notes, like see what comes up. You can try to draw it, and kind of paying attention to the feelings as well, like inside your body. And then like just delve like, if you actually end up drawing a symbol, look it up and see what you find. And like that's when it's interesting. And sometimes we get into the different traditions where you might find different meanings. And the way that I experiencing that is intuitive, where I just wait for myself to either get feeling of excitement, or like we call it like a ping, and like that it feels highlighted. And so when I'm reading something that I'm looking for in terms of research, like that's for me the symbol that I'm on the right track, or I'm on the right path, or I read something and it feels like deja vu or like remembering. I know that that's kind of highlighted. And so that's like a potential way to explore. And like I'm all for the woo, like I'm here for the woo woo stuff, like don't get me wrong, but also so much of it can, you know, we can explore like in these other ways too. So whichever way feels and like for me, just to say when I speak on things like I I think maybe for the year where I started and tying kind of into what Maya said too, it was really when you ask for it, you're going to start to see more things. Like when you're all doing this work, and so things are going to be opening up to you just because you asked, right? Like, and you're engaging with it, and what you're like you putting your intentions out to do that. And so, but for me, there was like when I started, like there was some fear that I did need to look into. And first year for me in witchcraft, I like always having these psychic experiences, but I did really dive in heavy to the shadow work because I wanted to look at any fear, nervousness that I had coming up because I didn't want to engage with the woo in that way. And so that was very important to me. And now like my feelings on like bad omens or hexes or things like that, I have very strong beliefs about that and I really don't believe in them. But and if you do, that is absolutely okay. I just want to say that it's just not what I believe in. So when I'm like if I'm giving feedback, it's never going to be that, oh, that was a bad omen or that was, you know, um I I just think it's like I'm just engaging and nothing is more powerful than me and nothing is more powerful than all of you, but I had to like turn inward. That just didn't, you know, I did have to do some inner work on that to be able to kind of confidently engage with whatever was coming up in a way that I still like felt confident in myself. I don't know why I said that. I just kind of went off there. So I don't know if that helped anybody, but thank you.
No, that's good, really. I think a lot like a lot of you in a way that, you know, um, but the shadow work is definitely what brought me to Bright and Dark. That's, you know, being able to do that, and I've made more connections to, you know, things that have happened. So it's like the things that have happened in my past, I feel like experiences that I had were just to kind of keep me aware until I got to where I was ready to do the work, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody, for listening. Somebody else has got something they can.
Thank you, Taryn. Yeah, and not to say, I just want to say too, like not to say there's shady shit out there. There is shady shit out there, but that's why the shadow work and the inner work helps with the discernment part of it. So you can choose like what confidently, like what you want to engage in. And Taryn, like I didn't get any vibes that that was anything. I really, like I said, the vibe that I got from your experience was kind of like some, like showing you some sort of symbolism. And I'm interested to see like what next time, like if that what happens from here.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, is just, you know, see what leads me next.
Yeah. All right. All right. Let's see. And I don't want to say your name wrong. Is it Satao? Satao?
Yeah, it's Satawi.
Satawi. Okay. That's how
Yeah.
I said it in my head. Thank you. You are up.
Yeah, of course. So, I have a really basic question, and it's about foundations. So, I kind of grew up in a coven when I was really young, and there were a lot of things that were really heavy about it, and they were all from the 60s and 70s. So, it was really confusing. So, I got really excited when I found this and the focus on like kind of a psychiatric with the shadow work and like trauma processing and all of that. Love that. But my question is, with all of us being neurodivergent, I told Maria this. When I go to meetings or I'm online talking to people, I feel like Fenrir, like really big and destructive and awkward and like just huge and out of place. And in my head, I'm this purse dog, and I'm so happy to see everyone and interact and get excited, but I feel so out of place. So I guess my question is, when you guys first joined Bright and Dark, when you first came into this and all of that, like how long did it take you before you felt like part of things, and like it was okay for you to speak, and like just to kind of expand into the space a little bit more.
Thank you for that question so much, Stephanie.
That's a great question, and I saw others nodding along because, oh my gosh, I think I just rambled every time I tried to engage. I felt uncomfortable through the rest of the day. I was like, oh, I said something dumb. I shouldn't have said that. Um, and in hindsight, and knowing the group as I know it now, that was just really unnecessary, right? There has been, I have never seen in a year and a half any judgment or anything less than love and support from the group. And I think we've all been there, we all are there. And so everybody understands when someone might be feeling that way, and has the experience to be able to offer more support to those who feel that way. So you are in a really good place to just be safe, to be yourself if you feel safe doing that. And that's been my experience. So I hope
Sure.
the same for you. Let's
you.
see, who was next? Is it Wit? Are you next? Yeah.
So I've been a part of Bright and Dark for 3 years now. I run a sacred space, or I facilitate a sacred space. I'm an event planner, and there are still times where I feel clumsy and like I shouldn't take up space and whatnot. Imposter syndrome is strong, you know.
Yes.
It's working through that social conditioning is going to take, you know, I feel like it's taken me years to get to this point where I'm so social conditioned with it to not take up space that it's going to take me years and years to work through it as well too. So it comes and goes. There's times where I feel way more comfortable and I just feel like I shine, and there's times where I just feel like I'm fumbling through it, mumbling, say something that I'm like, ugh, I don't know how that was taken or anything like that. So no, never, like Steph said, I've never been judged here. There's, you know, we are all in some sort of neurodivergent boat pretty much. So, you know, there's a lot of understanding, but also normalizing that feeling is still there and working through it. And, you know,
Sure.
it comes and goes. So that feeling of belonging though is, I found that I had to work through my own feelings of that. That it is always that feeling is always given by this group, our community. It's, am I able to accept that feeling? And once I was able to accept that feeling of like, I do belong, like I am allowed to feel like I belong, that's when I started feeling that more. So
Great.
that's my 2 cents. And I believe
you.
Maya's next.
Yeah, so I joined Bright and Dark a couple of years ago originally, and then had to take a break for my own personal stuff and came back a few months ago. And I missed the community of it. The community is just so great, but I didn't feel like fully comfortable with speaking until one of the SASS masses that we had. The one of the first few SASS masses, we went a little long. And so a group of us kind of came back after SASS to the meeting. I was able to be vulnerable with everybody. And
Great.
it was so loving and so accepting, which is very, very hard to come by in this day and
Yeah.
age. And that's really what made me more comfortable. Like I still get nervous talking and like
Yeah.
saying things, and sometimes I talk too fast or like whatever or ramble. But
Yeah.
really just the acceptance of no matter what I said, they were just like, absolutely, we hear you. You're doing great. We're here for you. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. Where was this been all my life? So yeah,
Thank
that's,
you.
of course, that's just been my experience.
That's great.
I'll pass it off to Ezra.
Yeah, I love this question. It's really making me reflect on I've been here for about a little over a year and a half, and I came from not doing any magic. And so I came at it from like a kind of, actually, the more I went into science, the more I was like, oh, you guys are saying the same thing. It's just in different words. And I was like, oh, okay. And then so when I joined the group, I felt uh all at once like this, like, oh, this is it. And oh, I need to like observe so that I know what I'm actually looking at, because I had never looked with like these eyes knowing magic was real before. And so I feel like a lot of people in the community, they've had a long history of experience with it, and like this depends on who you are, obviously, but I wanted to make sure I was uh deconstructed and not saying anything that was like insulting to anybody else, and I felt like worried about that when I first got in. Yeah, but I feel like even when like I keep on wanting to go back and rewatch the videos of me like a year and a half ago, and I have a really weird relationship with that. But I feel like there's never been a moment where someone just goes, "You're wrong," or like, "We didn't like that you're taking up space," or "You're like," nothing like that. And that's because we're such like a deconstructed community, in addition to like the acceptance and rambling and info dumping and all that stuff, like all of the things that neurotypical communities like tend to try to like judge you out of. Like that doesn't exist here. Like, you're allowed to ramble, you're allowed to take up space in whatever way takes up space, you take up space. So that's what I've found. Thank you for asking this question.
Thank you guys all for answering. It was great to hear all these different stories. I feel much better.
I'm so happy you asked and like reached out to earlier. I like sometimes I'll kind of, when I'm feeling that nervous feeling, or if my nervous system gets engaged, or I'm having like imposter syndrome, I kind of just sometimes I'll reframe it, and reminding myself that I have like a lot of social conditioning, and that from my past, and is that like informing my decision, because my perspective has changed, and so I sometimes have to like sit with that and be like, where's this feeling coming from? And is this coming, from like, it just keeps coming up like during this whole conversation. It's like, remember what scary movies did to you? Like, scary movies like ruined me for, like I like, seeing spirits. Like not anymore, but like, like, because that like conditioning of that, and that like what someone else kind of told me, and I like believed it to be true. And it was like deconstructing that so I could actually really experience it without influence it, and in a way, in that way. But the more perspectives only adds value to the community. It only adds to it. Like, the more perspectives, the better. And we're really great. Like, even if you and I totally don't share perspectives, we're like really great at navigating that. And so everyone is sharing what it is that they feel at this moment in time. And nobody's ever going to tell like you that like this way, this is the right way and that's the wrong way. We don't do like that. That's part of the deconstruction that we're doing, right? And so I just wanted to share that too. And I wanted to share that I think you're fucking awesome, and I'm really happy that you're here. Yeah, like I love your energy. I love the excitement that you bring. Like I like Wit have been here for a few years, and when someone comes in new with that excitement, it also you share that excitement with me, and I also feel excited, and I think that's awesome. Yes. So I'm
Thank
happy
you.
that
I
you're here.
appreciate that.
Yeah, you're
Thanks to
welcome.
everybody.
Let's see, Stephanie.
I had a bit of a new topic, but I wanted to make sure that everybody had weighed in who needed to. Okay. I this morning volunteered with a bunch of other hairdressers at this organization that builds beds for children in the city who don't have beds to sleep in. We've done it before. It's fantastic. And it's a lot of woodworking, which is super fun. And I decided before I went that I was going to, infuse a little magical practice into my volunteering. And because we're working on a repetitive task thing in guild, I was like, perfect opportunity, right? Because I get there and I'm immediately assigned sanding the boards that become the beds. It's a whole assembly line thing. And so I created a few little, incantations, mantras, blessings, whatever you will, works for you. As I was sanding, the top of the board, may your sleep be safe and comfortable. As I was rounding the corners, it was like, may the hard edges of your life become softer, and so on. And an hour and a half went by in 5 minutes. Time completely changed, and it was a really fantastic experience. I felt like everybody in the room must be able to see what I was doing, right? It felt so big and beautiful. And I felt good doing it the way that I did it. But it did make me contemplate consent as I did these things, as I was creating it for other children. And I held in my mind, accept this if you so choose, as I was also doing it. So I would love to hear perspectives on consent and marriage. I knew that. I can see you getting ready, but I would like to hear perspectives on consent when you're doing magic that impacts others. So that is my question. And I
Let me
think
lower my
Jenry,
hand before I
yeah.
find out. Okay. I love this question because, like, where's that line, right? All right. You can't like change your nature, right? You are magic. And as a connection-based magical practitioner, how you engage with your life is a like weaving of that magic. Like whether you're aware of it or not, you're doing it. When you are going into a space like that, you are bringing your medicine to that space. You were invited. People invited you to participate, and they invited you to do what? To make safe beds that are comfortable for children who need them. And you, from what I see, did that. That's what you did. And you brought your medicine to that. You were asked to participate in the creation of those beds. It's if you went and like wove in something like may you graduate from the greatest college in the nation, or may your hair grow long, super fast, for like if you're weaving in fairy godmother blessings and shit that have nothing to do with what you were asked to come there and do, that's where I draw the line, right? If you are like changing the nature of something, or if you are going entering like outside of where you have consent to navigate, right? Does that make sense? Right.
Oh yeah. I mean, I did it without even realizing, and I tried to keep it, and I waited. I tried all morning to think of what I was going to, focus on, but as I was doing it, it came to me, and it just worked itself in with what I was doing. So that's, I think, why I felt so good about it, but it did make me consider,
Yeah.
where is that line? Because it's confusing.
Right. And that line's going to be a little different for all of us because like we're all at like different places in our practice and have different relationships with our magic and engage with it a little bit differently. So there isn't none of us can tell you this is exactly where that line is. We can only tell you this is how I interpret where that line is for my practice. And the first like not red flag, but if I'm questioning anything or doubting anything, doubt is the bane of magic. And so if you are doubting your engagement in some way, let's talk about it. Look at that. What's going on? So that you can be sure and then engage all the way. Does that make sense? So I think, yeah. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. I think that's all. All right, Maria.
And Satawi had to put a weigh in the chat. So you are next.
Hello. So basically, yes, all of what Jen just said, I was like, damn it, that's what I was gonna say. But yeah, the I think if there's a community out there that is in crisis and is asking for help, like in a number of ways, and like in any way that you can help them, I think you're obligated to help them with, everything you've got. And what I was taught with my magic when I was younger was that there really aren't any white or black magic or light and dark or whatever. She told me that every time you make a decision, there's going to be good and bad consequences. You just need to ask yourself, is this worth both the good and the bad consequences that I may have to deal with? Because every choice brings consequence. So I would say as long as you are willing to kind of take on the consequences, and especially this community is asking you for help, asking everyone for their help, I would say you're absolutely right in this. I think you're doing a great job. That's all.
Thank you. Ezra.
Yeah, definitely everything that they said. I think the way that I participate in this is I think that magic itself is operates based on consent. That's my belief. And so if there were somebody who did not want the blessing that or the magic or the spell that you were giving, they would not receive it. That's basically how I could see that. And since like they said, like both of them said, you were invited to do that, that's how I see it too, that they were already asking. But if there were any, like, magic can see inside of you, that's how it was. And so if there are people that are just on no, like frequencies, and that's why I'm confident in magic's ability to discern even more than I am what that person is willing to receive. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you, Ezra. The way that I interact with it, I love the question because I think about it a lot too, when stuff comes up, because it's like sometimes, a friend or family member is going to call me and they're like, this is what I'm looking for. And I'm like, great, let's do it. And, you've got that consent and it. And so it's easy. It's interesting because the whole conversation for me is just maybe something I need to reflect on after this. There's a theme about the intention that you bring to a situation. And so for me, so much of my magic is my intent. And so if I haven't been giving consent to say specifically spell the bed, for a specific person for a specific reason. but you were asked to like do that. I'm gonna show up. My intention like is gonna be like inward, is to share my love and support. And as I'm crafting that bed, my intention was to like show up with love and support. And therefore that's what I feel like I brought to that day and that I brought to the space. And that was my magic. So I wasn't forcing it on anyone, but that was my intention while I was building that bed. And so that's how I engage with it. And I just love that we're so mindful of it. You know, like the fact that you even asked tells me that like you're so mindful and respectful that I don't like ever question that you would cross the line. Do you know what I mean? Just because like you are so like mindful of it. And that's what I like love about our group so much. But that's kind of how I've like engaged with those types of things. But it is always something that I think about a lot. So I love that you asked that question. Jen Marie.
So also, yes, and I think that coming back to the doubt thing, if it pops up in your head and you have this moment of doubt, it needs your attention. And you could always go to the foreman and ask if you could pray over the beds. Like, thank the Christians for making that a normal kind of thing. But you could absolutely just like ask if you could pray over the beds. And most like I've never had anyone say no, you can't. Like never had anyone say that. Because who would, right? No, you can't. Like I would be like, fuck no, what are you doing? But that's like know the rules of know the rules of the circles you're running in, and work the rules in the way that you need them. Oh my God. If you can't be good at it. I do tend to just like go up and say shit though. Like I tend to be a little on the bold side of that. It's my mutant genes. It's my mutant genes. And yeah, well, that's a change of subject that I wasn't intending, but yeah, totally. I actually have a gene mutation that makes me able to do very brave things, but it blows through my dopamine to do it. But yeah. I'm the kind of witch that would not only ask if I could pray over it, I would lead a fucking prayer circle around the shit too. I would. And my internal like trickster would be like delightfully, like maniacally laughing the whole time. I'm able to hold both. Go ahead, Maria.
Like stamp a little witch hat in the corner of the bed. No. just so you know, bed was made lovingly by your favorite, your community witch. No, what I was like thinking about is because in the beginning of the conversation, like a lot of us were like talking about like tech stuff that was going on, like feeling tired. A lot of people on the socials were, feeling a little bit more stronger emotions coming up and sensitivities kind of coming up. And we do like a full moon approaching. It's funny because you're talking about tech issues, and it was my fire alarm decided is a good time to start beeping. It's like I'm like someone's fire alarm is beeping. I'm like, oh, it's mine. But it reminded me like of conversations that we've had about like, furthering kind of the intention and like how we like kind of show up for our magic, and like when we show up to, especially in sacred spaces where we're performing magic, of that kind of that how we show up it like is important. And so feeling like I'm feeling like really tired, and so it's like kind of honoring that part of myself that's feeling tired and like honoring my rest, and knowing that if tonight there was witch work circle, like I would have to ask, like, do I feel like I can show up, in the space and do that, or do I need to rest? And so I don't know, I felt like kind of sharing that, if, just like kind of how we show up, and that sometimes like it's okay to just honor like how we're feeling, and to like inform our next actionable decision, or like what we want to do from that space. That was all. Thank you. Goodbye.
I'm in the like, do I say something? Do I not? Like, do I not? I'm in that like phase. But I like that Maria brought that up, because when we have witch work aligned with the full moon like this, we tend to have lower attendance levels because of all of these like super low energy stuff that we like deal with. And I think it's important that you guys know that you can log in to the meeting and not actually participate if you just need the energy of hanging out, or just need some kind of like background noise of hanging out. You are allowed to show up even if you don't have the energy to like really participate, if you just want to exist there. And this is something that we accept not only in these virtual spaces, but also at our in-person, like autumnal convergence. If like you get to choose how you engage, and if you don't have the sensory capacity to engage with other people, we have like we have a sensory hood policy that if you have your hood up, you don't exist. Like you're a phantom walking through, and that means you don't want to engage, but you want to still like be present. I think that that's so important, especially for our community, to be able to have those levels of engagement, because all of us connect to magic in different ways, and all of our systems interact differently to energetic environments and at different times and all of that. And the greatest thing that you can do, the greatest choice that you can make, is a choice to be a good advocate for your system, period, no matter what that looks like, right? And so when you are weighing into your energy levels before doing something like witch work, coming in and hanging out with everyone, if you're feeling into it and you're like, you know what, I am super low energy, continue to ask the questions. Are you low energy to where you connection feels exhausting? And what kind of connection feels exhausting? What kind of engagement is there? So that you can kind of fine tune that. So you're not like, it isn't an all or nothing kind of dynamic, guys. That's fucking weird. It's a come as you are kind of dynamic, and you are valuable. Your presence is valuable, no matter what you bring to the table. The fact that you're at the table is fucking awesome and celebrated. Yeah. I'm reading the chats. I got distracted. Yeah, you can be a lurker. We like lurkers. You're welcome in our circle. Who doesn't like a good lurker?
I mean, at the last
Makes the like
convergence,
hair stick up on the back of your neck. What? I'm sorry.
that's okay. Yes, at the last convergence, that's the first time I experienced night sweats that wasn't related to an illness. It was a hormonal thing. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, am I sick? And I was like, and Wit was like, as the events coordinator, she would just be like, we're doing this. And then that was it. Like, come if you want, but like, just like you're included if you want to be, like, and she would just like like, because she knew I was exhausted. And so she would just like, it was just wonderful. Like, oh, thank you, Whit. It was just a wonderfully supportive situation where like I knew I could show up if I wanted to. And if I didn't, I was okay. I could just show up to the next one like when I wanted. And that's what I feel like this whole like community does too. Like, it's not like it's like sometimes we come into things and we only have our previous experiences to go off on. So like school, which many of us had varied experiences with because it's set up in a way that doesn't fit our learning or communication or emotional needs. And um and so like sometimes people come in and it's like, is this going to be like school? And it's like, it really is whatever you want it to be. Like the structure is kind of there, but it's like, if you don't want to, and you don't want to show up today, you could just show up the next time. Um, and it's like, it's whatever you make it need to be, which is what I love mostly.
And
Choose-
and
and
we're so much more structured than we were in the beginning. It's so much more school-like than it was when we first started. And it was only because, and school meaning like structured, meaning that there is a workbook. There is like some like materials and things that you guys can engage with. And those things that we have that are structured like that is because I was hounded for years about it. It's so like, and like not anti-school, but so how we approach things is so like not structured like that, that it getting any kind of structure was not an easy task from the support team. They'll tell you that. But yeah. Do you get stars in the spell boxes? Yeah, you guys are always begging me for gold stars. Gold stars for everyone. You talented and gifted program graduates. uh.
and
I'm
that's why
on
when
one
we
today. Jeez, this
yeah
is fun. It's gonna be
even when
great.
like we talk about what we call things, that takes up so much of our time because we want to make sure it's like super inclusive. So like that's why we don't call the end of foundations graduation. We call it launching because it's not a graduation, you're just launching into your next thing, but like it's like very intentional and mindful. So, and we're just talking. If anyone else has anything that you want to bring up, just jump in. We still got half hour. Oh, Ezra, I saw you. Oh, Maya raised their hand,
Mine
so
can
we'll
go.
go to
I
Maya.
know go with mine.
Okay, you're next, Ezra. Maya, go ahead.
Sorry, are you sure? Okay, so I
Yes.
don't know how to pose this question to the group. It's kind of come up a couple times within the last few days. Um, where is the rationale within the group of understanding the scientific of what we learn in our society versus what we feel in our witchy woo-woo craft? And then also belief systems beyond that. Like, where does that merge? Because for me, it's varied from day to day. Like some days I'm super sciencey, then some days I'm super woo-woo, where I'm like in an insane asylum type of thing. And then other days I'm like, I don't know, like belief systems, they're a thing. So I kind of want to get a gauge from a group like where all of that kind of combines for everybody.
Great question. Ezra, you're the perfect person to kick that off.
When you mentioned this, I don't know if you saw it, but I do like a slow turn, like I'm just like a very intense when I hear something that activates my special interest. So yeah, so I came at magic through science. I mentioned that before. And I as I studied, like I got like a resurgence of wanting to learn math because I got so into physics, because I got because basically I had like my spiritual awakening, and I was trying to understand it because I was like, this is, I've got to understand it through the science lens. And there's like this very common, like there's actually several different things I read about physicists who become at, who become like very Zen, very spiritual, like at least they become like philosophers who are trying to understand the fact that we like, live on a giant spinning rock, and that everything is essentially made of the same one thing, like atoms and all that stuff. And that very much is like, we're all one, like we're literally made out of the same material. Everything's made out of the same material. And there was like this, there's like a couple different, like very well-known like physicists who, one of them wore fuzzy slippers everywhere because he was like, you never know when the ground is going to decide not to be the ground anymore. And another one that put a horseshoe above his door, and when people asked him like, how are you like this world famous physicist and superstitious, and he's like, well, I don't believe in it, but I've heard it works whether you believe in it or not. And there's so many of these people that the further that they go into science, they become more and more certain that our beliefs are actually what form our reality. And there was even a Nobel Prize winner like a year ago, who finally he was thought of crazy for years, and then just recently won the Nobel Prize. And this is going to sound like you're like, this is a very difficult like phrase to understand, but like our mind hallucinates our local reality is like the fundamental basis that he won the Nobel Prize for in proving. And so every time I learned something that was just a very important part of science, something like the placebo effect, how it works, like a pill works just because you believe it works, like a significant portion of the time. Sometimes it even works if you're just given a pill and they said, this isn't actually your medicine, but just because your body is like, oh, I took a pill, it's going to make myself, even then your body will feel better. And so learning about those things, I was like, wow, power of belief is actually, it changes things. And so from there, when I knew that scientific basis of it, I was like, well, isn't that like essentially what we're doing when we're saying like affirmations? Like when we change the brain structure in order to have a new belief, like by repeating an affirmation, which are now I see that they're essentially spells, like you're spelling out what you would like your new belief system to be, and you're creating new neural pathways to believe that, instead of what we were conditioned to believe, which usually has to do with like a lot of feelings of like worthlessness and not being good enough and that kind of stuff. And so I witnessed and then proceeded to do through my own like experimenting like on myself, essentially by doing it, that my belief system literally formed my reality. And that when I created more paths for my brain to take that were not the conditioned way of thinking that I had been raised in, things like the universe literally gave me what I was expecting, which is confirmation bias, as they would call it in science. But essentially it is when you start giving language to a new concept, you begin seeing it. That's how our brain works. And if that's the case, in addition to the placebo effect, in addition to the like our mind hallucinating our local reality, that is something that everyone's experiencing. And so you can choose to not believe in magic. And in my experience, that is a less magical world. Like quite literally, than the one that I would prefer to experience, which is a magical one. And I think that ultimately, once I started to reconcile those two, what it seems to me is that science is the eyes of like of humanity, maybe. Like it's observing things from an outside perspective. And but there's so much more than our eyes. And there's so much more than how our brain analyzes the way that we what we're perceiving. And so when we only look at it through a scientific lens, we're missing the whole rest of the system. And so I love science, and I'm a very visual person and a very thinker type. But those are only a portion of the picture. And once I started looking at it from that perspective, it literally expanded my reality because I wasn't just thinking from that one place anymore. I think that's all I had to say. I'd love to know how that sits with you, but we can go to Whit first. Either way.
I'll say ditto to everything that Ezra just said. But I have a heavy background in psychology. And I don't know how many times I said to Jen Marie when I was starting was like, oh, well, that's this in psychology, or that's this in psychology, or that's this in psychology. And breaking that like trained and conditioned need for the scientific reason behind things was something I had to work through. Now, granted, I still enjoy finding the scientific reason behind things, but I find that it mirrors, and it is the magical side. Science is magic. There's so many things that science hasn't been able to explain yet, just because we're not able to collect data on it, or we're not able to explain like a basic standard of it that, in 100 years, 200 years, we may be able to explain it scientifically more, and then but it doesn't take the magic away from it, So I see them as going hand in hand. I had some other things that I was going to say, and then I lost them. So, yeah, they're gone. So that's all I have now. Ta-da!
I wanted to ask if there was anything specific. I had something else to say, but that can wait because I like this topic of conversation. But is there anything specific that like activated like your or anyone's like what was it that said, oh, this is specifically science? Because I'd be interested in like translating it in a magical way if that anybody is interested in that, because that's pretty much how my brain works now. Because I agree, science is magic, and it's just, science is honestly like in its infancy, and we don't really have the tools to observe like what's happening literally inside somebody's like body and their own personal universe. But we don't have to talk about that specifically, but okay, weigh in from Tally.
So, yes, absolutely everything that you're saying. And I love science. I am such a geek. And I think all of us that are kind of neurodivergent get really stuck on our little science facts and everything. My favorite thing to do is to just approach it as a philosopher. I think there's a place for poetry, there's a place for magic, there's a place for science, and it beautifully ties in all these things together just by asking questions. I mean, that's what you do in shadow work. That's what you do in science. That's what you do in your spells. I mean, it all ties everything in so perfectly that I think philosophy is the answer for me.
I love that. I'm also a big philosopher. So
I think thinking about the Eastern versus like Western medicine too, of like how we have really taken a lot of like the community and the traditional medicine, be that like actual medicine or, you know, like mental health medicine, out of what we do here in the United States, that like that social conditioning part of it, and the bringing it back to like the patriarchy and capitalism, and like how the government can control us through those steps, as well as like, you know, taking that magic out of the things that we do on a daily basis. That's been a hole that I've been diving down into and rooting around in and wallowing in for a while. And it's just it's so eye-opening to like really look at that. And there's a few like therapists that I follow that are like, they're decolonizing therapy practices too. And that's just like so eye-opening to think about that. And it's all things that, you know, like once it's brought up or talked about or I read about it, I'm like, well, duh, that makes sense that we should do it that way. Or, you know, like this is, you know, a little bit of like controlling, or what's the word that I'm trying to think of? I can't think of it. Coercive, there it is. You know, and you know, like how we can start decolonizing that and working on getting back to that alignment. And you know, we're seeing it more and more now in like traditional therapy even. Still co-opted and colonized quite a bit, but it's starting to make an like more of an appearance. Mindfulness is, I don't know how many times I've heard about mindfulness now and meditation in the field, and you know, which is great, but it's still like, you know, how can we bring it back to like that most aligned piece of that for that person too. So sorry, I'm going a little bit more all over the place, but
No,
that popped into my head.
Yeah, what that made me think of was how we're conditioned because of like patriarchy and colonization, that feelings aren't real. Like we can measure like the chemical reaction that is happening in a body when emotions happen, and yet they're saying that's not real. And that is like, I read something recently about the way our brains colonize like the rest of our body, like by trying to control our behavior. I also read something about the supremacy of the eye, like how we say things like a picture is worth 1,000 words, and believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. And the ways that because our eyes are actually part of our brain. There was like a science thing where they like took a petri dish and they grew brain cells, and eventually when a brain is developed enough, it grows eyes, like a potato. And I always think about that because I'm like, oh my gosh, our brains are just advanced potatoes. And so what that makes me think, like I think Maria was talking about like scary movies earlier, and pretty much every time there's a scary movie, there is a feminine person who is saying, hey, this experience is happening to me. And there is a masculine person saying, no, you're not, you're fucking crazy. And that is like a really good example of this. It's like, not that the eye, you know, is not important in observing our realities, but when we only do that, when we say everything else is fake, we just limit ourselves a lot about in our experience in the world. And I did that for a long time, and I totally get where people are coming from, especially because we have also been trained through scary movies and that kind of thing to be scared of the other things that we can't see, literally. So that's just like, that's a really cool point. And I I also loved psychology, and when I was growing up, that was like another big special interest to me, like why people do things, why our brains work that way. So many neurodivergent people, do that. And it's interesting to me when I've been thinking a lot about the decolonization of our brains, because the reason our brains try to do that or try to colonize our body is because it's colonized. And that's what colonization does, is it tries to uh, breed itself. That was the phrasing that came up, is that it continues like I described this in the kind of like the way that a virus does that. Like a virus is just trying to survive, like it's just trying to mutate in any way. Yes, Taryn, exactly. Like it's just trying to survive in any way it can. And so we like colonization occurs on a personal level and in our relationships because it's in our brain. Like, so deconstructing the colonizer in our brain is like one of the best things we can do toward liberation. And I mentioned this because I recently, like, I filled out this form for my for like a life coach that I started to see, and she's awesome. Like, they were like, they had this intake form, and they were saying like they on every level, like science, magic, and then health and all this stuff. And even as deconstructed as I feel like I am, having done this for a while, my brain, because I wrote this, right? My brain still used words that kind of infantilized my body. And it was just really interesting to see that, considering how like careful I thought I was being, and how usually I'm very good at kind of course correcting and being gentler with myself by now. But it was a really good data, because now I'm like, oh, I see what's happening there. And that was just a really cool moment for me that happened recently. Go ahead, Whit.
I feel like I could talk on this for hours, but so this is also my special interest too. Ezra and I've had some really great conversations in the past too. But so taking it back to, you said when you were talking about emotions and how like, there's actually like chemical changes, we can actually measure it. I was reading some more research recently about how being able to identify emotions and how conditioned we are with that as well too, of looking at like the outward observable reactions that we have, and how those can be determined by the culture and the community that you're in, as well as, like who's teaching it to you. And like that fascinated me for a little bit there too, of just like, that conditioning that comes with, what does it look like when somebody has, like, what does someone's face look like when they're feeling fear or they're feeling another emotion, and how we internalize that of, observable things is what I feel is my emotions, and like intellectualize that versus being able to feel it in our body and being able to identify it for ourselves so that we can be aware of it, and taking that next step of releasing it, letting ourselves feel it and release it. And so yeah, that had popped in my head when you said that too, so just wanted to add that on. Info
Yeah.
dump with that little one.
That's a really cool point too, because like, as neurodivergent people sometimes are interoception is impaired, I wanted to say, but I don't think that's the word that I really want to go with. But but like I did have to come at it from like an observation perspective first in order to reconnect to how I was feeling. Sometimes I will literally, someone will be like, oh, you don't want to do this, huh? And like, I'll be like, what do you mean? I'm doing it. and they're just like, yeah, but you're like frowning like really deeply. And I'll literally have to sit there and be like, yeah, you're right. I don't want to do this. Why? Like, why did I automatically just start to do it without checking in with myself first? And so that's that's really interesting as far, because I remember like manually looking at things like like I watched like all those videos about like what like the CIA has to say about like body language and what that means, and like those pictures of like somebody who's frowning like this, and like what does it look like when you're scared, and like what does it look like when you're confused, like to manually like teach myself how to read people. And so that makes a lot of sense considering all of that. Yeah. We only have like 7 minutes. Did anybody have anything to share on that? Because I do have one last thing that I thought was kind of cool, but I want to keep it on the subject if somebody else has something on the subject. So earlier, I really I wrote down, because mirror magic keeps on coming up for me, and so I wanted to write that down because it felt like it was just, and I don't even know. I wrote down the mirror mask movie as well, because I don't think I've seen that before, because that also felt like a little like nudge. And I love media. I love media and movies and TV and stories and books and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times, that is how I will receive information, like spiritual information sometimes. So one of the things that struck me to write down when we were all talking is that like magic can see inside you. Magic knows better than I, like my current like filter does, whether or not somebody else consents. And I also wrote like, if they do not receive it, they don't receive it. And that actually reminded me of an analogy that somebody that I follow, who's like a very cool, powerful witch on TikTok. And they were saying that manifestation, they gave a really cool analogy for it that really works for me, because I'm like a big, Mercury person. Like I'm like a Gemini sun and Virgo rising. And so I'm like very Mercury, like it's like circling around me all the time. So it was that in order to receive your manifestations, you have to be present. It's like that's where the receiving takes place. And so when you manifest things, you can send out your intention, like you just ordered something off of Amazon, and then but in order to receive it, you have to be there. Like you have to be present in the now. Otherwise, like, if the package gets there, you will not be able to receive it. Like it'll just sit outside because you're in the future or in the past, or or doing things that you don't want to do, just like I was mentioning a minute ago. Like that's why, because we've been working so much in the last month or so on presence and being right here. And that just seemed like it was an analogy that worked really well for my brain. So I hope that that resonated with me.
Thank you so much, Ezra. I love that.
Hi, Cairo.
I want to see the baby.
Let's see a spotlight Jen Marie for a second so everyone can see the puppy.
That's my boy right there.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh, that face. Hi, Cairo.
Freckles. Oh my
4
goodness.
more days, buddy. 4 more days. Getting so big. Oh, those eyes. And that widow pink nose. It really is the best kind of torture. He's so floofy.
Well, thank you everyone for coming today. You can, of course, hang on and look at the puppies for 2 more minutes. Thank you everyone for coming today, and we'll be back next week. Same time. Tomorrow we'll be live as well to do our like intention setting. If you want to catch us on Instagram or TikTok.
Isabel just raised their hand, just so you know.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thanks. I was staring at the dog. Thank you. Isabel, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Estra. I quickly just wanted to ask Estra, is there a day and time? I'm sorry, I'm very scatterbrained today, but when you're going to be doing the nonviolent communication?
Yeah, on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am doing it's like an unstructured practice that so far we're mostly just modeling empathic listening and paraphrasing. So I will put the email. I usually put it in the Facebook group, like the link and everything, but sorry, the cat got me. So yeah, but I will put in the chat like an email in case anybody's not in the Facebook groups for that practice group. So hope to see you there.
With the link and all of that jazz, right?
Yes, so let's see. I don't have the link on me right now, but it's like the email, if you send an email to let's talk liberation at Gmail, I can send it to you there.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate it.
yeah, thanks for asking about it.
Absolutely. Thank you. And that was it for me. I just didn't want to forget, have one more week pass me by, and I skipped on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye, everybody. Have a great day. See you next time. Bye, puppy. Love you.